but it already has houses there. So what am I going to do? I'm going to buy up as many of those houses as I can, not for the house itself, but for the land upon which that house sits. So if the people who are living there are willing to sell it, then I will purchase it from them, raise the
Okay.
house, like destroy the house, and then put my building on top of that. Right? And
Right.
this is a common practice. Like real estate developers do this all the time. Right? Um,
Right.
so that so in those kind of projects, if there's some YouTubers saying like BlackRock is buying up all these houses, like that's probably why that's happening. They're not just going to randomly buy a house, right? And just be like, yeah, BlackRock, this house is owned by BlackRock on this street randomly, right? They're not going to do that.
Well, they said
Um,
that, right. They said that they're buying, it should be illegal for them to buy single family homes, like
well,
as a
again,
business.
so again, it depends on what the intent of that purchase is, right? So
They said
companies like
that,
BlackRock, yeah,
so real quick, they said that the amount of commercial, like, or corporate businesses owning commercial properties was 15%. What, 15 years ago? 15? Yeah, 15 years ago, and it's jumped
okay.
to 50% today.
So corporations own 50% of the housing. And
They said
I don't know.
of um I want to say it was housing, but I think it just meant properties in general, like that people could like live. Like um may God, I wish I could pull that back up. Um hold on. Let me see if I can't Google it and if it'll pull it up. Um I don't know if it was homes or if it just said like um rentals, rental properties in general.
Yeah, I'd be very uh
What percent of it's saying right here, it says as of June, so it's a break apart, right? So as of June 20 of 2020, so this was 2 years ago. This has changed drastically even the last 2 years. Institutional investors owned at that point 3.8% of the 15.1 million single home unit rental properties, which is roughly 574,000 single family homes. And then it
okay.
says, here we go. However, institutional investors have a larger presence in some markets, like, for example, Charlotte, North Carolina, where they own 20% of the single family rentals. And then it says overall market share of investors has increased since 2000, but most homes are made by smaller localized groups rather than large corporations. And it says that investors bought 24% of single family homes purchased, which was a 16-year increase from the 15 to 16% range since 2012. Now that number has increased in 2022 to 28%. And then it says specifically overall, according to data reported by the PEW Trust and originally gathered by CoreLogic as of 2022, investment companies take up a quarter of the single family home market of all
Got it.
American homes. Okay.
But it's but that percentage that you had read, is it you're saying the of the national
Like
this
overall,
month?
back in this was of 2022. Like I said, even the past 2 years, housing market has gotten stupid. So, um, someone just posted. I'm looking at. I don't know how accurate this is. I'll have to look and see if they have anything um, linking to facts to prove this. But investors acquired up to 76% of for sale single family homes in the Atlanta area?
Uh, that seems highly unlikely. So I'm looking
Yeah,
at
I'm looking.
Parcel Labs.
Yeah. Hey, Dan and
Uh,
Arrow.
Parcel Labs seems to say that institutional operators own 0.73% of total single family homes in America.
They own what percent? I'm so sorry.
Point 0.73.
0.73? Yeah, that doesn't even sound
Yeah.
right.
In aggregate, Parcel Labs calculates institutional operators own around 0.73% of the total U.S. single family housing stock, less than 1 in 100 homes, with it reaching
Hmm.
as high as 4.4 in the Atlanta metro market.
Interesting. Curious, very curious. What do you think is the big overall issue at hand?
What do you mean by issue?
Like
Issue of what?
with the housing market as a whole, like right now, like our biggest battle.
Interest rates. The interest rate
That's
is
the
still
main
high,
issue.
as far as I can tell. Yeah.
So you don't think the cost of like the housing themselves is an issue? Like how they've gone up
Well,
exponentially?
the cost of the housing is because of um, it's a reflection, right, of what uh a lot of these interest rate calculations have done.
So they make people charge more for their homes because interest rates are higher?
They can afford to charge. Yeah. So here, let me see if I can find like a good article explaining the dynamics. I'm not the best at describing real estate. Like I understand it, but I'm not the best at describing it.
Yeah. What's up? Okay, Dan said, okay, in Atlanta, investors own a significant portion of single-family homes. As of the mid 2024, investors have purchased around 18.2% of the single-family homes sold in the metro area. This translates to roughly 3,805 homes purchased by investors in just the 3 months leading up to July of 2024. Over the last decade, the large institutional investors have acquired more than 65,000 single-family homes in the Atlanta area, which has had a notable impact on local housing market, especially in terms of, and then, hold on.
What Dan? What's the source of your information? Where are you seeing that?
He said, as of 2024, investors own approximately 16% of single-family homes sold nationwide. This represents about 1 out of every 6 homes sold across the U.S. The percentage of investor homes owned homes have decreased slightly from its peak during the pandemic when the figure was around 20.8%, but remains significant. The value of homes purchased by investors nationally in recent quarters has exceeded $43 billion. Hey, what's up, Burden? How are you doing? The issue of housing is some part corpse buying homes, interest rates, and people trying to get top dollar for their homes, and people buying homes with little to no equity. He tried to send a link, but it didn't go through. Dan, can you send it in a DM?
DM it
You're
to me. Yeah.
yeah. Are you in Discord, Dan? Afternoon. I feel like the cost of homes went up because a sawmill and lumber yards shut down during COVID. A 2 by 4 by 8 that was $2.58 pre-COVID went up to 13. It is now 3.48. Plywood was over 40 a sheet. COVID made it 100 or more. And now I heard that had something to do with Canada though. Like there was an issue with like they were receiving a lot of lumber out of Canada and then something happened with that. I don't know enough about it to I would be ignorant to speak on it, but I remember them mentioning something about Canada with that. Because I remember the cost of wood was insane. So if you wanted to like build a fence or anything like that, it was like stupid. And people were complaining about it. Um, he said link in general on Discord. Okay. Um, well, the biggest complaint now that people or something that I was, reading about, at least online, was that the majority of people feel like the wages have stagnated and not increased to the level of what inflation has rose to, and
Oh
also
yeah.
taking into account the cost of housing. And most people said they can't even afford to save for a house because the cost of their rent alone is more than a lot of mortgages used to be just a few years ago. And so if you didn't get out ahead, they said you're pretty much screwed. And when one of these guys like was comparing like his dad's salary of $60,000 in 1999 when he bought a home for 120K, which now like he was trying to make the equivalent. He said to buy a home at the rate of which that would make like sense. He said to buy a $470,000 home, which is about your average now, depending on where you live, but in a lot of places, he said you would have to uh he said make 100 and I think it was 30,000 or 120,000 would be the equivalent that he would have to make to be able to purchase that same home under today's interest rates and cost of living. Um, which is crazy. And he's like, I know I make nowhere near that. I'm like, well, the majority of the middle class don't make anywhere near that, you know? So, but why make houses of wood and not from bricks or cement? He said, I went back to building with Legos. He said, back in 2020, to buy a house, you need 60K. In 2024, you need 109K. They do make some homes with brick, but they still have wood frames. Yeah. You only need 5% down first time buying. Flawless Sullivan. Yeah. Um, I was told that there is a credit for first time home buyers and such. And I know that obviously there are loans for those who are military as well, with VA loans to be able to get a house with no money down. But it's not the same across the board, of course. Twitch notifications are fired. I didn't know you were live for 10 minutes. Also, hi. Hey, Sentinel, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm looking into the Redfin stats that are mentioned in this article.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if this investor behavior is prevalent to the extent that a lot of these people are saying, yeah, that's definitely going to limit the housing supply, and that would result in obviously higher costs. Um, yeah, we have to see. Give me one sec. I need to hop off from my meeting. I'll be back.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's see if it's, oh, I don't know which one I want to do. Reduce cost at workstations. Well, there you go. Now reduce cost at workstations. Boom. Um, I also think rent rates play into it. Yeah, I mean, well, it's all as a whole has gone up, you know, and everyone's got their own arguments on it, but they said the one thing bipartisan that everyone agreed on was that they needed to fix the problem. Like everyone agrees that there's a huge problem, but it was shot down by both sides recently, which is kind of confusing considering they both agree with it. It's like agree with it in front of the public, but then behind closed doors, I feel like the majority of those investors that they receive money from are um, they're not going to do anything about it because they're investors and they fund their campaigns and such. Good morning, Fire Guy. How are you doing? I'm a vet. It's the VA home loan, and you're right, no money down. I use it for myself. Yeah, no, that's smart, Red Irish, honestly. I mean, good on ya. That's probably one of the best things they did for vets. Not too bad. I was up at 6. I was up till 6 a.m., but what sleep anyway? Hopefully you got more sleep than me. I did, and I still feel tired, so I don't understand that. Um, you could do away with wood frames in some cases. I'm honest to God, Arrow, I don't know enough about that where I've learned if there's one thing I've learned, if I don't know the answer and I can't speak on it intelligently, I'm not going to give my opinion on it. Unless I have facts, I have no business talking about it. So hey, I believe you. If you say, I mean, until I see otherwise, I'll, you know. The average, I thought, isn't it like 7%? I think it was like 6 something before. I know my friend bought one for almost 7% interest, which is whew, insane. Investors need to get out of the business of buying single family homes. Yeah, that was the biggest argument, Dan. Yeah. They can't during an election year, of course not. Those investors buy 500K suites at the conventions.
Incoming enemies. Prepare for conflict.
What's up, Pinchy? How you doing? I wonder if there really is even much of a shortage. Yeah, they're trying to say it's a supply and demand thing too. There's like so many factors. They said it's a lot harder than just black and white. I mean, it's a combination of greed, of course, right? Like it started with that before the buying up, and then everyone else is like, well, they're jacking up the rent costs and the cost of selling their home. So, I already own an asset. I'm going to do the same thing. And if they're doing it, why can't I? I'm going to build the same profit because people are going to pay it because that's what everything costs right now. So, I mean, they're all making money at the end of the day, you know? Speaking of buying a home, even with the VA loan, I can't afford to buy a home in Utah. Damn. Doing well about 4 hours into my 48-hour shift. Jesus. Yikes. Um, Housing shouldn't be a for-profit business. It should be subsidized by larger entities. Um, what are buying houses? Dr. Broctopus integration is off, by the way. Here, let me fix that. Let me get into the hold on. Let me go ahead and get into my broadcasting in Discord. So if you want to join in, you can, Dr. Broctopus. Yeah, see, I don't know. You can't, right? There's fine lines for everything. If you do it for one thing, you have to do it across the board for everything, right? So you can't prevent people from making money and within their rights, right? You would have to ban corporations from buying up said properties and price gouging, which, I mean, right now I don't think they can legally do that by our law. People who are buying now are being sold the lie you can refinance when rates go down. Yeah, I feel bad for people who bought now. If we take a tank at all in the market, they're so fucked on their house that they bought because a lot of these homes are like not worth more than 130K on paper, right? But because of, supply and demand rates and everything else, they're charging like almost 400K for this said $130,000 cookie cutter home that some, contractor cut corners to make with little to nothing but a box cutter. And then they're jacking up the cost of that. And then you're going to also pay like 7% interest on that, right? So you're even paying more than that for that home. You're already overpaying for the home. Now you're paying like double that in just interest over a 30-year mortgage. Another big issue with housing is people are buying homes to rent out rather than to resell. Oh yeah, because they all saw dollar signs. 'Cause everyone else is doing it. The bigger companies were doing it. So now you see the families trying to start their own businesses from home where they don't have to work. So they think if I buy up enough properties and offer money, you know how many times like there will be something in the mail that will say, and it will have like a wholesome family photo. We'd like to buy your property. Like they send those everywhere. It's either rent for 2,500 or a mortgage for 1,250 for the same size place. Yeah, but the problem is that the the mortgage isn't even that low anymore. Rent for 2,500 or 12, if it was that easy, people would just buy it. But now, I mean, the mortgage and the rent is almost the equivalent. You're not saving regardless because the people who own the homes that are renting out the homes are still charging you like that full Monty price, you know? Imagine a rate of 15% in my country. Wait, what? It's even worse where I am in the Bay Area. You're in like San Francisco? Yeah, that's crazy over there. Like, like when my brother tried to get a place there, I want to say it was like 7 years ago. My older brother was living out there, and I think it was like 2,200 to rent in a gated community. Unicorn Farts, thanks for the follow. Sorry, that name. I will build you a house. You tell me when and where, fam. They can and do legally buy houses and sit on them to make prices go up since less supply and the same demand will do that. Yeah, you're right, Dr. Broctopus. Yeah, the OC is out of control as well. A one-bedroom shack is 1,900 a month without utilities. Yeah, I believe that. But can we blame the people buying? But can we not blame the people buying now? They know what they're getting into. Yeah. End of the day, they read the contracts and bought in. Yep. I found a house that was $150,000 and had half a bathroom. Please, someone explain how that works. Dr. Broctopus, are you serious? The amount of repairs I would have to do because some people cut corners is so ridiculous. Yeah, they cut corners all the time. Whenever you go in those subdivisions where they have, you know what I'm talking about, the cookie cutter homes, they all look almost identical, just a varying, like just a slight shape difference, but they're all like made of the same materials, same two-story concept. Like there's nothing fancy about it. They're all like got, you know, enough space for you to put a yardstick in between the houses at some points, you know. They cut so many corners on those homes. Their job is to just build the subdivision as fast as possible. Get it up and sell it. Sadly, the home prices here are starting at 400K. Jesus. 1.2% loan rate and has inflated home prices over that last 10 years, and it hasn't unwound at all. I believe there's a slim chance price will go down for those houses. They can only stop and fix them. Mortgages are around the same price as rent in most places, and the only issue with buying a house is the down payment. Yeah, which no one can afford because they're paying more than what a mortgage would have been. There's a reason a lot of people couldn't afford a mortgage then, so they rented, and at least then you could save money. Like oftentimes you would have 3 people living in a house, 4 people living in a house, splitting rent at $500 each, $300 each. Now you can't do that. You're happy to get $1,000 split amongst a roommate so that you can, you know, try to save money. And heaven forbid, like you're spending anywhere near 1,800 each, like just to live in a place depending on where you live. And you know there's the argument a lot of people have about people just needing to move, but have you ever moved across country? I've never really had this be an issue of mine, at least, because I've lived here a decent amount of time, but I can sympathize with the fact that, I mean, for instance, my mom and her hubby went a cheap route with moving. They moved from Maryland to Florida. That move was $5,000. Not a lot of people have $5,000 plus first month's rent plus last month's rent or deposit or pet deposit plus X, Y, and Z upon moving on a new place. A lot of people can't even afford to save for a home. So when people say just move like it's that easy, I'm like, dude, do you know how expensive it is to move? It's expensive. A lot of people don't have that kind of money. A lot of people don't. And I don't have to be going through that personally for me to sympathize that that's a shitty situation. I wouldn't want to be in that situation where it was like I was literally outgrown by the area I lived in for cost of living, to where now I'm being forced to try to figure out how I'm going to move out of that said area just so I can afford to live. You know, that's terrible, and people are going through that. And it's not laziness, which a lot of people blame it on laziness. I'm like, this is just like greed, you know? Like a lot of us work our ass off. We don't get any, pat on the back for it. We don't, it's just an expectation. We're just going about our day, working and just trying to make a living. Most of us make decent wages, but decent by what, decent by what, whose idea, What was decent 4 years ago is no longer decent by today's measures and the cost of the economy for you to live, just to live, Not to mention food. You have to think everything went up. It wasn't just your cost of like living when it came to like housing and such. It was your groceries. Your groceries, you go to the store to buy the same thing and you're paying double, if not triple, for that same thing you bought just 3 years earlier. But your wages have not reflected that shift. That's the scary part. We need a bubble pop, but that would hurt people. Yeah, it would. It would hurt so many people. I mean, there's no perfect way to fix it. We're going to be cutting someone's leg off. Buying a home is the only reason I'm in stocks right now. Back in 2015, I moved from VA to Utah. Gas alone for the U-Haul was in total $600. I miss those gas prices so much. Okay, so I have a rental and a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I charge $700 a month, and I give them a few months free to let them buy their appliances. Yeah, the logistics of moving across country is a pain. Looking at different options, it seems to be the train is the cheapest option. I debate moving it myself, but it seems insane. I feel like a bad landlord. The stories I hear from you guys, I might not be as bad as I was. No, it doesn't sound like you're bad at all. I mean, that price doesn't even sound crazy. I don't know what you're renting, but apparently you're lazy if you only have one job. Yeah, you're like the work to die aspect is stupid. I think that you should be able to work like, be tired and take your vacation without guilt or without like fear of, I can't take off. I can't afford this if I take off work. So then you just work constantly. Like what you have to think of the quality of life that is. Nobody gets up in the morning and goes, I can't wait to go to work. You're hoping that you make enough money to be comfortable and to occasionally get your ass like out of your city or out of your comfort zone and take a relaxing vacation. But that's not even like in the side eye of most people's like view. Like they're not going to even be able to do that. And everyone honestly should be able to have a break where they're not constantly grinding all the time. Because you'll work yourself to death. Like doing that's stressful. It used to be so different. Like if you hear stories from your grandparents and your great grandparents about like how they used to work and the hours they used to work, it was so different. Like everyone needs a break from work. Work is not fun. But it's sad when you feel like you have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living, just to make a basic living. Nothing special, nothing fancy, just to make your ends meet. Like that's a sad existence if you think about it. And that's most people's existence. Don't look at the news. They say the economy is doing great and is on the up, LOL. Or a war lowers the interest rate. Imagine if I rented out a steamboat That's what they lived in. Oh my God. Or a train. That's it. I'm buying a train cart and converting it into a home. We just bought a house. Bought a house down in Corpus. We bought through the builder so that we saved about 2.5 points on interest, but I have a mid-city salary and the locals here struggle to buy these homes, and I'm seeing a lot of extended families buying homes here together. Well, they had to because they had 10 kids. Yeah. See, that's the argument too. But that's also why people aren't having kids. Or they're even having kids like late in life, like later in life. It's because like everyone's just trying to get on top of their finances and it takes longer to do that now. And not everyone is buying, you know, stupid things. And there's a lot of blame that wants to be placed on people's purchases. And I'm like, not everyone's an idiot with their money. Some people are actually really wise with their money. And they still have like that same struggle, you know? I think it's more complex than we think. And there's no one person to blame either, honestly. This is fault all across the board. My house down, well, because they had fun. Oh, I got you. I'll be right back. I have a doctor's office and blood work. Okay, we'll see you in a bit. Born too late to benefit from our post-war America. Born too early to exist only in cyberspace. Almost like the powers that be want us all to turn into middle-class renters. I'm all for people making money, but when businesses become all about the money so they can maximize profits and engorge their bonuses, that's when it becomes disgusting. Hey, Rabbitfish, how are you doing? Actually, just like, so there's nothing wrong with having money and having done something good for yourself. I don't shame people for being wealthy. Like that's the difference, right? You can be wealthy. You can have earned that wealth. That's fine. There's a difference between wealth and just outright greed, right? Like getting to a point where it's absurd. Like if you couldn't spend it in 10 lifetimes, but you got people who can't feed a child. Or when you have people more like stressed out about dogs getting fed than children, like that's when it becomes an issue. Making people who don't deserve to pay for everyone else's like issue. You know what I'm saying? Let me rephrase that. People like having a problem and blaming somebody who has no say in being born into this world, right? Walmart has the most workers on food stamps and federal supplementary income that they make several $billion a year, and it's owned by one family. Well, they had wasn't it like they were able to pay people with disabilities like under what the wages were or required? Oh shit. Oh, there we go. So because also if they didn't get their benefits, you make too much to get benefited, but too little to. It was something like that with their workers, where they hired a lot of people with disabilities because of the fact that they could pay them less and under what the typical salary would be. But they also, the people would take that salary because if they made what they would have paid them like at a normal rate, then they wouldn't qualify for their benefits. And so a lot of them just kind of settled. So it was like a win for the company, but that person's still getting fucked, you know? They're like capped. They're in that like weird limbo, like that weird range. they fall between. My wife loved working at Walmart, best job she ever had, according to her, but also her first job for an American company. That's fair. I mean, arguably, you could say that billionaires who pay nothing in taxes and have a passion projects of flying into space for millions of dollars every time as a hobby have some responsibility to pay their share back to society as a whole. Very fair. Very fair. That sounds like some shady shit that they would pull. Like, no, for real. Like that was the thing. We had a discussion about it. Michaela knows more about it because she was actually telling me, and she was able to pull like all of the resources that back that all those statements. Oh, he's stuck in the wall. And it was wild. I was like, they're allowed to do that? And she goes, yeah. And they do it. Like even now. Exploit people with disabilities. Associate managers actually because they lay off their managers when they get too expensive, then promote lower level employees because they would be cheaper. I mean, that sounds about right. And that's why the whole like thing of work hard and you'll like level up, that's not true. It means essentially they keep that dream alive so that people will believe it and then keep fighting for it and working blue collar and working for the higher ups. But it's like the only way to really make money is if you make your own investments. And if you invest money back in like stocks and you actually are able to buy assets. But the problem, like I said now, is people can't afford to buy assets. They don't have a lot of free standing money out of paying for what they, the cost of living. And then like heaven forbid they just want 1 or 2 kids with them, and then you're having to pay for all that as well. What they say, raising a kid, what, 10 years ago was $250,000 from like birth to 18. Wasn't that like the consensus? Which I think it's even more than that now, so that's why no one's having kids. Let's see. Also, if you have a difference of opinion, feel free. You can join it at any time. I am not an asshat. I don't mind people with all opinions to talk. I think that there is positivity with discourse among people that can be respectful. So you feel free. Feel free, man.
We are not alone.
I think there's something to be learned across the board. Stop it. Wealth and inequality and wealth concentration, an average of 331 in 2023 from birth to 18. Okay, so it's gone up clearly a lot in the last like 10. But I remember them like talking about that. So raising a child has significantly increased over the past decade in 2024. Yeah, see, clearly. In 2014, okay, it was 245,000. Now it's 310,000 adjusted for inflation. I'm an asshat, but for other reasons. I think ketchup is good on chicken, but not on fish. Oof, man. He's about to start a world war with that one. Oh, Dr. Brockdo, are you getting in Discord? Sir? He said chicken tenders or grilled. That is the serious question here. Are we talking about grilled? How do you feel about the current state of medical care in the US? I'm a dragon. Why are costs so out of control? Are insurance companies to blame? Okay. This is now, mind you, this is based off of like my first degree and knowledge from like the last bit of evidence from that time. So I haven't done a hell of a lot of research as of recent. But I can say that there are things that insurance companies pay people to scan for and also pay physicians not to test for. Like that has been proven. I know that they bill for every service in hospital settings. I know that people, because they can't afford health insurance, then contribute to what we call medical waste, which means ER visits as a primary care due to not, if you go to a PCP and you don't have money to pay and you don't have insurance, they can refuse to treat you. But if you go to an ER, they cannot refuse to treat you. Now, whether or not you're sick enough to be admitted is a whole other thing. I mean, legality, they have to. They can be sued if they send you home, and you know there are complications with that, right? But in a cut, uh, like a, we'll put it in black and white. You go to an ER, you're going to be seen, right? You can choose not to pay that medical bill. And a lot of people don't. If they can't afford the insurance, they can't afford the medical bill. The medical bill is stupid. They charge like now, I mean, with inflation, I'm sure it's like 300 something for a bag of saline. That takes like 5 to 10 cents to make. So, I mean, you do that like math, or like a Tylenol will cost you a few $100s in the hospital. It's a Tylenol. You could buy that over the counter for nothing. But literally all of those medications are billed at a higher rate in a hospital. So some of that they're going to wipe clean, right? Because they didn't pay that. The hospital didn't pay that money. And it depends on if it's a for-profit or if it's a non-for-profit. If it's a for-profit, they can refuse certain treatment. They can send you to a non-for-profit, which just means that if you don't have insurance, you're still going to be covered. And the government expects you to see so many people with Medicare and Medicaid to be funded. They also expect you to meet certain criteria, not increase the risk or the prevalence of infection secondary due to hospital acquired, because they won't pay out for those. So that's why a lot of times when they come down on people, they come down the healthcare workers, because whenever someone acquires a hospital acquired infection, even if you did the best you could to prevent any cross contamination, it still happens. You're going in and out of people's rooms. You know, you got stuff on your clothes. It could easily make someone else sick. It's just that simple. But if they get something acquired, it can considered to not be covered, so the government won't reimburse for it. So then the hospital absorbs that cost, and it comes through not cutting the CEO's bonus, not cutting the CNO, the CFO, any of their bonuses. All of them get fat checks at the end of the year, right? But it cuts our pay increase every time we get an evaluation, and they just say we're doing our job, essentially. They never give increases. Like, if you get an increase from a hospital, it's like 24 cents for a year. Maybe in 2 years, you might see 24 cents increase. You might even be certified in whatever area that you specialize in, and they still won't pay you for it. And like that's the norm. But I'll be damned if any of them cut their bonuses. No, it will not come from that first. It will come from budget cuts on the units. And the units are broke down independently, right? So all supplies bought for said unit is budgeted separately. So they only allow so much for each unit to be budgeted for, and coverage for what they're going to buy, like equipment, whatever. So ultimately, the people that suffer in the end is us. It's not the higher ups. It will be us. Either it will be the patient care, which at the end of the day, they won't find fault in themselves. They will blame you. Like, what could you have done more? How could you have improved patient satisfaction scores? When we get low satisfaction scores, they put that on us, not on themselves. They put it on us, like as the reason being why the satisfaction scores are low. And some of them require satisfaction scores that are of a certain rate to be covered. Now, it's kind of like car salesmen, right? If you go to a car dealership and you give them a 8 out of 10 stars, it's not a 10. So they don't get their money. So all that effort, if they spent like days working with you on trying to get you a low rate or whatever, they don't get that money unless you give them a 10 out of 10. Only a 10 counts. And so a lot of people think, oh, I'm still giving them a good rating because I gave them an 8 or a 9 on a couple of these. But if it's not a 10 across the board, they don't get covered. It's the same thing in healthcare. It has to be a 10 out of 10. Not all hospitals are reimbursed that way, but non-for-profits oftentimes are. For-profits can charge whatever the hell they want. They can buy things that cost them little to nothing. And if you don't show up to pay your bill, they can absorb some of that cost because technically that wasn't the real cost. They're absorbing far less than that. And they send it out to a creditor, who's going to come after you until you choose not to pay it for X amount of years and it falls off. So, but the problem with that being, anytime we have what we call medical waste over time in ERs, especially with how, health insurance is now and how there are a lot of people that aren't covered, whenever they don't pay their bills, all of that money, even though it may not be the cost of what it actually took to take care of them, their flat rate costs that they pay for the hospital will be reabsorbed. And in terms, a lot of our insurance premiums end up going up because they have to pay for the difference in that cost, because the only way they're going to change is to increase the cost of everything. They're going to adjust for that amount lost by, making the cost of those services and those supplies more expensive. And so you will see it change in your insurance policy. So there's the argument, right? I don't want to pay for someone else's insurance. Why is that my responsibility? You're paying for it now. You're paying for it in inflation. You're paying for it when your premiums go up. You're paying for it when your car insurance goes up, when someone else makes accidents in your area and that accident level increases, you're going to pay that cost difference. It doesn't matter that you didn't get a ticket in 10 years. It doesn't matter if you haven't had an accident at all ever. You're going to absorb that cost because it's going to be for your area. It's the same thing with health insurance. They're going to base it on the health of the population. Your population's unhealthy. Your population costs a lot of money, uses a lot of medical waste. You're going to absorb that in your insurance cost. In 2 years, our insurance, the highest one that you could buy for the premium, the monthly premium, changed, where the deductible now is higher to meet than it was. It used to be $1,000 if you bought the top tier, the most expensive monthly medical insurance. You had $1,000 deductible. Now you're paying out the ass monthly for it, right? But your deductible is $1,000, so you're not completely screwed if you end up hospitalized. Now that has changed. It went up, and it's going to keep doing that, $500, $1,000, and it's going to keep going up and up and up. There's nothing that's going to cap that. So, I mean, it does every so often, every few years it does. And we're healthcare workers, and that's our insurance, and ours goes up to compensate for that as well. So there's a checks and balances with everything. Hey, Dead Oryx, how are you doing? PCP is a primary care physician. I'm so sorry. So disgusting. Yeah. You can call it the ER. Like some people, like everyone calls it. There's several terms for it. I keep forgetting that some people don't know what the ER stands for. My bad. Do you think travel nurses exploited the system? I think during COVID they took advantage of what anyone would have, I mean, to be fair, they're in shitty working conditions, right? They didn't have proper PPE. They were absolutely shit on. Their ratios sucked. A lot of them went home crying, stressed out, blood pressure through the roof, and a lot of people were tired, PTSD after all of that, after their treatment and everything. So I think they deserved that during that time. That was probably the only time that nurses actually made money was during that time. I think it was stupid that they bragged about it. Because that went away really quick. As soon as everything died down, that went away. So if anyone thinks that travel nurses still make that money, I'm so sorry. You are sadly mistaken. They barely afford now to cover expenses of the place that they're staying at and their whatever hometown or apartment or home that they purchased that they're paying for as well. And they have to prove duplication of expenses, right? Legally, they have to. If you're going to travel nurse and accept the per diem, you have to prove that you are actually paying that. Like, where are you duplicating your expenses? And there are people that specialize in those types of services. But the biggest complaint, a lot of people are going staff or per diem in the staff position because they said that it just makes more sense. Because right now they just don't make enough money, you know? So... Of course, she screams as soon as she gets up. This bitch.
Incoming enemies. Prepare for conflict.
Let's see. Sorry, give me a second. But just to clarify, nurses don't get paid anything off of services rendered. I know that there was an argument for that for a while, when people were arguing, well, you just vouch for X, Y, and Z because you get money too. I'm like, the only person getting money from any services rendered is a physician. Those are the only people. And the hospital, sorry, and the hospital. We don't see a difference. If we work short-staffed and we work we work 3 jobs for our 1 job because somebody else doesn't show up to work and we have to handle their burden, we don't get paid extra for that. The hospital just essentially makes more money, by working short-staffed. So whenever they're short, they can just blame it on, well, someone didn't show up, or well, no one wants to work, or well, X, Y, and Z. But they will purposefully not hire enough people so that they can work short-staffed, so that they can save money on those positions. Knowing that the nurse is still going to be held responsible, they're going to say, well, that's still your responsibility as the nurse. So you will still have to work, but double as hard, essentially, on your shift with no change in pay for the extra work that you have to render. So that's often a thing too. And that happens a lot. Because we kind of talked about that. We were like, why don't we get compensated whenever someone else doesn't show up and we have to do extra work? Why does the hospital get to benefit essentially from our labor on that when we're the ones that suffer? And so do the patients. Their outcomes are worse when we're short-staffed because you're not able to, be thorough, which is important. It's not necessarily a field you can really fuck up in, So, why isn't there a nurses union? There are in certain states, but if you talk about it at most hospitals, they'll fire you because this is a right to work state, right? So they can fire you for anything. So it's not, it just bouncy, anybody? Can I get bouncy, please?
I've got a bad
Oh,
feeling
thank you.
about this.
Never mind. I got it. But yeah, so they'll fire you for just about anything. And they won't even say that it's about the union or whatever, but they have people listening out for people trying to start unions on units. And there's often a lot of people who are just waiting to be a brown noser and tattle on somebody. So all it takes is one person not to like you, and then you mention a union and they're going to go tell somebody higher up that you're trying to strike up a union, and then there you go. Game over. They like being able to take, 30 minutes out of our paycheck for a break we never got for a 13-hour shift. They love doing that. Like it's automatic. We don't even clock out for that. Even if we don't get it, we still have it taken out of our checks. And then they will argue and make you feel bad about why you didn't get a lunch. And you're like, well, my person was really sick and I couldn't leave the room. And then they'll be like, well, that sounds like you should have. It's always something you didn't do that you could have done more. They just don't want to. They don't want to lose money. So, is that why nurses strike? I mean, they did. They went on strike for what was it, 2022? They went to DC. I was in DC for that nurses strike. But, you know, they didn't listen. Didn't do really much. It just gained traction and attention. But anywho. Brittany, how are you doing? It's going, man. Doing good, thank you. Hope you are doing well. I'm enjoying the TED Talk. Well, that's good. I know that it's not everyone's cup of tea, so. So should we buy an insurance or put the same amount of money back into stocks and bonds? I am not a financial advisor. 100% not a financial advisor. I am not going to pretend to be one. We've got a couple of people who would be able to give you better advice in this community when it comes to finances, who actually invest in stocks and bonds and buy currencies and trade, stuff like that. Yeah. I can tell when people aren't about it though. Arrow, I appreciate your sentiment though. I appreciate it. But let's be honest, oftentimes when people are in stream, they're in stream to get away from the day-to-day this kind of shit. Like, to be fair. So her financial advice is buy strawberries and chocolate, yeah. I mean, Dan, that you already know it really grinds my gears, man. You're welcome, fam. I'm just reading chat. It's very sure. I'm here to fall asleep. Well, there you go. This made me laugh. What grinds your gears? The way I see it, the problem reduces to the same thing. The people who have the resources and power, they use it to keep it, and that usually means the average person loses. The only cure to that is to keep getting informed and to never stop learning. Yeah? Loss, if your gears are grinding, we got WD-40. Thanks. Listen, squeaky gears all the way. Oh, you mean to tell me? Woman, I was trying to get her right in the head, but I missed. I know it looks like he's dead, but I swear he's playing possum right now, okay? Oh, there's another one. There we go. I'm lazy, you can tell. I'm just like, I'm gonna shoot this box. Looking forward to blood work next week. Needles scare me. Oh, scar you, not scare you. Sorry. Oh no, wait, what? Dr. Octopus. For the insurance company, definitely. I hath returned. I need to hop and do a work call, but I'll hop in after that. Okay. That's fair. See, the fact that I'm just like shooting my boxes open.
Master, we are not alone.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Not the most ideal stream topic, but I think it's important to talk about things. But please be honest if that's like, if that's something that you don't like, you can be honest and just say that. I am open to ideas and opinions and suggestions.
No, she isn't. Lies.
100%.
Lies. All the lies.
We literally, sociable, I feel like we talked about so much stuff. We were talking about like healthcare costs and they were asking also about, oh Lord, just about the cost of healthcare and unions and stuff like that. We talked about a lot of the things. I told them union speak is like a death sentence to your job at that place.
Hmm.
He's like,
Yeah. No. Yeah, you're not wrong. Very
You
accurate.
don't understand. A lot of people don't want people to unionize, and they've also not criminalized it. You know what I mean? They've made it to some people sound like it's bad. It's so bad. Unions are bad. And I'm like, they're literally, there are some unions that are terrible when they found a way to, work the system. But for the most part, unions are good, and they protect the employee.
Yep.
And they allow them the rights, like to their breaks and making sure they have covered breaks and stuff like that, Oh, man. Everyone should be entitled to a break, a proper break, to eat their food, to be able to pee, and have time to urinate in their shift. Like, I think that that's just a basic human right. All these doors are like locked. Holy hell. Sir. Stand down, son. Ah! Oh my god, he scared me. And for that, your face gone. I'm not gonna lie, the dude doing the roofing next door sounds as if he's like hammering into the side of the house right now. Yee, little head. I would not go into stocks for medical reasons. Don't gamble with money you aren't willing to lose. Yeah. Well, that's how I felt about it. Just because I don't have any money I'm willing to gamble with right now, so. I would rather be debt-free first. Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poo on company time. Technically, it doesn't count like going down. You just earn less, but still. You sell it and cover your medical bills. Some of the unions embezzle money, which is the case with most unions in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and Georgia, which is why so many union elections fail in those states. Yeah, that's fair. But it's better to have them than to not, especially with people who are willing to talk about it, not battling for who's right. Honestly, we should all be on the same page when it comes to stuff like this anyway. So I don't really care. I don't mind also being wrong. And I don't mind saying when I don't understand something. Some people will argue things that have no idea what they're arguing. So oftentimes I'll just ask. If I don't know, I'll just ask somebody and be like, explain it to me because I don't understand. And I want to understand so I can make an informed decision. And it's okay to change your opinion too. You don't have to be right to the point where you're willing to sacrifice like learning something, you know? It's important to adapt and to say you're wrong. I've changed my opinions on things quite a bit just from different perspectives. It's not a bad thing. It's like healthy. And sometimes it takes being like close to the situation for you to understand it better so you can have an opinion on it too. Sometimes it's not very easy to understand and it can be very complicated. I wish I was a person that was extremely well versed in explaining things, like very good and articulate with stuff. Not all the time though. My ADD like gets the best of me, honestly. So staying on topic is not my strong suit, in case you haven't noticed.
I don't know what you're talking about. I never noticed anything.
Ah, my understanding is that you hold on to a bond past its maturity period, then you could lose money as inflation increases. I will probably join Discord's back
Yep.
if the lithium works. Okay.
Whoever said about the bond thing, yep. And it's in fact what happened to, or it's one of the things that happened to Silicon Valley Bank with that whole implosion, 2 years ago. 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Whatever, however long it's been.
He said, which may not be a loss of principle, but you lose money on gains. But I could be misunderstanding that. Do you feel like tier 6 POIs just are ramped up in the number of zombies you gotta kill? Yeah. I feel like I've killed a fuck ton more zombies in these. Depends, there are different types of rates and different periods. All a union does at the end of the day is save you from paying a lawyer to go after your employer after being granted the right to sue. I got the one with the underground server room or whatever, and I had to kill zombies longer than a blood moon, I swear. I swear, that is me. All right, there is a POI. You know which one I'm talking about, Sociable. That one that's like, it's got more underground shit than anything, and it's like super, super wild with the amount of zombies that come out of it. Military ones and radiated ones. The ones that come out of that one are insane. Like,
yeah.
they're almost all military too, so they're like not easy kills. Speaking of bonds, where are the kids/grandkids who got gifted a bond and are grown up now? Wait, what?
Oh, you don't remember? Remember that growing up, you like parents or grandparents would give their kids bonds.
No.
I've got a
You never
bad
had that?
feeling about this.
No, I never got gifted financial anything. What?
Yeah, I mean, it won't be. It'll be small. It'll be like a $25 bond, a $50 bond, or something. It was just like a way for them to understand patience, essentially, or at least that's how my parents taught me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, my parents were very honest in the apologies for not teaching me finances. That was something that had to be like learned. Not like I said, not everyone has the same, you know, hand dealt, right? We all had different levels that we started on, starting out. Like some parents were very vigilant with explaining certain things, others were not. Some thought ahead of their kids' futures, some didn't, you know. Some expected theirs to work hard for everything, some didn't. Some expected a balance, like you do this and I'll give you this. Just depends on which one you came from.
Very true. Also, Ash, two things.
Yes.
Friend invite, or can you accept it? And then also, where are we doing